So you've got a special interest in one of the presentations tonight?
I won't vote.
The equity meeting?
Did you come up with some hard-hitting questions to ask any one particular student?
No, I'm gonna let everyone else ask.
Okay.
By putting an exclamation point after it.
Oh, this is the same thing as what you got into this computer with. Right? Oh, no.
Yeah, I had to go.
Sorry, I did not mean to snap at you.
Well, to get into his computer, I did this.
Paulette would have changed. You're the one who helped her get the new board docs. Do you remember? Would it have made her put in a new one after the one she sent you?
Was that a long time ago? No, it was somewhat recently.
Maybe. Or was it Gabby? Oh, I bet Gabby did. She would have probably emailed you that, but was that a temporary? Sorry, I might have admin rights today.
Let me see
Kids sitting outside, not wanting to come in.
This is the third time and I messed it up.
I totally snapped at you. I'm so sorry. I was like,
this.
what's your name? Paulette.
Find me in Nashville Convention.
I noticed that in Oakland too when I go to join your team, and I'm like,
Still everyone. Maybe I didn't change it.
Interesting.
Seems right.
One of very few.
Seems right.
Just copy it. Maybe I didn't change it.
Honestly, I mean, most
of course, my
cases,
child's
it was
back and forth on whether he has a ticket for the game tonight or not. I'm like, I'm kind of busy.
Because it seems like it wouldn't let me change it.
There was a seminar.
Okay, Paula, I never changed it from the one you told me that says change.
Okay.
Parents had vaccinated her. She supposedly was ultra conservative and being careful about everything.
At home, it goes in automatic.
Enlarged,
Once you got it
affected her heart and brain in a
right.
matter of days. Otherwise, totally.
Otherwise healthy.
Wow.
Yeah, it was sad.
I was just waiting for Amy to give me the all clear.
I'm done.
Are we good? Okay. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. This is the time and place for the regularly scheduled February 21, 2022 school board meeting. Welcome to the large audience here in attendance this evening. Welcome as well to anybody tuning in via the live stream or watching later on delayed broadcast. A couple of brief announcements before we get going. If anybody is here for public comment time, there's a pink sheet on the speakers table. We'd ask you to please sign up. Just a reminder, per board policy, we are not allowed to respond to any comments that we receive, although we thank you for them. And a reminder that per Iowa law, discussing specific employees of the district or their job performance is prohibited. With that, we'll do some introductions. Starting, we've got Zach Wall, Bonnie Lowry, Jan McGinnis to my right. To my left, Karina Hernandez, Sarah Faltis, Leah Stanley. I'm Sean Heitman. This is Paulette Newbold, the board secretary. Dr. Theron Schutte, the superintendent of schools. Our student board members this evening, Aaron Seeberger is back from swimming. Phoebe Hermanson and Taylor Jones. I think that's all the preliminary announcements. Would y'all please join me in reciting the mission of the Marshalltown Community School District? We develop learners who have the knowledge, skills, and positive mindset to successfully pursue a meaningful future through personalized learning experiences. And please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are not.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Faltis, Lowry, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Sodders.
Good evening, everyone. So first, we wanted to just share a reminder that this week is Public Schools Week for 2022. So I don't need to tell anyone here how important a role public schools plays in just our society in general. Having a well-educated populace is important for the success of any society, any country. So we really appreciate any support we get as a public school system, and just want everyone to be aware. So also tonight we have the Lenahan Lego Leaguers, members of that team, and Miss Vanessa Engel are here to talk about a really exciting competition the kids participated in this weekend. And it has to do, I will let them explain, but it has to do with transporting kidneys safely for people to get transplants. So I'll have you guys come on up.
Come on up, friends. All right, wherever is best.
Yep, you guys.
Should I just pop onto one of these microphones? Or-
Yeah, and then you should be able to pass it around.
Oh, perfect. All right. Hi, I'm Ms. Vanessa Engel. I'm the XLP teacher at Lenahan. All right. So these is the Lego League team, the Lenahan Lego Leaguers. All right. We normally have 10 of us, but some of us couldn't make it today and others could not, and that's totally fine. So at the beginning, what we do is for Lego League, we create a Lego League team where they have an overall theme. And this year's theme was cargo and transport. So they could pick any real world problem, and then they could do the research and attempt to solve the problem or make it more effective or efficient, come up with some sort of solution. So the wonderful thing was we started right from the beginning. We created a whole process. So we started off with picking all the different topics that they could possibly want to do. And then we created a decision matrix, and we made all of these decisions based on criteria that they wanted to do. And eventually they selected that they wanted to do the transport of a kidney to make it more efficient and effective for transport. So during this process, we were able to make contact with 2 surgeons. Well, one of them was my cousin, and then also she was able to make contact with one of her superiors. And we did a panel where they were answering questions, as well as we made contact with the Iowa Donor Network and made contact with a coordinator for the state of Iowa. So these students created some really fantastic questions and asked questions about kidney transport, the important aspects of that, and what are some of the things that go wrong during kidney transportation. And we found out that what was the major problem when it came to kidney transport?
Human error.
Human error. So people not waking up on time, people getting lost. So they decided to go ahead and come up with a solution where they did a bunch of research on different transport aspects, and they combined them all into one prototype. I'll let them talk a little bit more about the prototype, but there are a bunch of different gadgets to go along with it. But then they also decided, too, that they would have 2 medical students as part of their learning rotation to come and assist in transporting organs to kind of help this process. Because from what they learned, that a lot of times a courier will not have any medical training whatsoever when they're transporting organs from point A to point B. So they came up with some really fantastic ideas, and I'll let them talk a little bit more about that. In the process as well, they learned about kidney function, where I was able to get a bovine kidney, and we dissected a kidney, and we actually used actual hog kidneys for the presentation. And so as a fun treat after we're done with this, I'll probably have them dissect those 2 and compare and contrast the 2 kidneys. Anyway, so this weekend, yeah, I know it's very strange, but they had fun, right, guys? It was fun? All right.
Dissecting kidneys is fun.
All right, thanks, Thomas. Okay. So this weekend, we were invited to, all across the state, there are several teams that were invited to present their project. And out of the whole state, we were one of 16 in the whole state to present. So, and to have the opportunity to go to nationals. And I just found out that unfortunately we did not make it to nationals. However, since these guys are 5th and 6th grade students already, and I'm just so excited for them, because if they're doing this well now at this level, the more practice that you do, just imagine how you're going to be when you're in juniors in high school. So I'm really super proud of you, and you should be really super proud of yourselves too, guys. All right, so I am going to let these guys start talking a little bit about their prototype. Does anybody want to come on down? Brave souls.
Vanessa, who do you have with you?
Okay, let's go down the path, and then we'll just introduce yourself. And guys, do you want to talk about one thing that you learned or enjoyed about this whole process? Just one thing. First name and last name.
My name is Levi Reynolds, and I learned about the function of a kidney and what it actually does, and I enjoyed getting to meet new people and just having fun.
Nice.
My name is Kennedy Goldman. I enjoyed learning more about the kidney and what it does for the human body, and I learned a lot more about how to work together as a team.
My name is Zeppelin McCauley, and I learned some of the functions of the kidney in your body.
My name's Thomas Stanley, and I enjoyed dissecting a kidney, and I learned how to manage my time a little better.
My name is Esteban Anelco Rodriguez, and I enjoyed learning about how the kidney functions and all the different parts of it.
My name is Zach Kloss, and I enjoyed the teamwork.
Would you like to talk a little bit about your prototype? Guys, this can't be any scarier than talking to a bunch of invisible people in a box.
It's so much more scarier.
Why? Like, I keep telling you guys, eye contact is a good thing, see? They're great. All right, so who would like to start?
Sure. In the box, we have a Lego representation of a kidney pump made with Lego tubing and stuck into foam. And we have lighting so we can see the kidney when the box is shut. And Kennedy will explain how we can see in there.
Thank you so much. On the inside, we used a GoPro from our makerspace so that so they can monitor it without having to close and open the box and letting out all the cool air. And we have a battery pack connected on the outside, again, not to let out the cool air. Here you go.
Anybody have the iPad so you can show off what it looks like in there?
So we have an iPad to connect to the GoPro, so we can see inside through the iPad.
Technical difficulties.
Technical
Loading. So, guys, where was the competition held?
Wait.
Where was it held?
It was held at our school in our classroom.
Yeah. So it was online. Okay.
Virtual.
You didn't get to go anywhere fun.
No. They switched it to have a virtual. Usually they go to Iowa State University. So unfortunately, we were not able to do that this year, but we made the best of it with doing it in my classroom virtually and with lots of donuts and cookies to end. So we had a good time. They got it done. They did well with their presentation. Okay, there you go. You've got it. Go ahead. Show them what it's in the box.
You'll have to walk around.
Come closer.
I know, friend. All right.
So before you go ahead, I'm ready because I can find the box when the lights are on. So when the lights are off.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
So how do you monitor the temperature inside the box? Because you talked about not being able to let the cold air out.
We have a thermometer in there, which is, it's hard to see, but you can see it, and so
So you can see the thermometer on your iPad.
you have to, it's supposed to be like 4 to 8 degrees Celsius.
Okay. And so how do you keep it that cool?
We have ice in there.
Okay.
Yes, so for the actual presentation, we
Why
have
do
a
you have
layer of
thermometer?
ice and then the hog kidney on top, but I thought I would spare the board.
So
If you would like to see the pictures of kidneys, I do have pictures of those. Otherwise, let's just skip that part.
So how long will it keep the kidney at the correct temperature in that box?
24 to 36 hours.
And how long do you have to get that kidney transported? How much time do they have between the time they remove a kidney and the time it has to go where it's supposed to be?
24 to 36 hours.
The same as the cooler, okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Do you have any other questions? Or is there anything else that you guys want to share about the process before we?
How long?
Was the whole competition virtual or was just the Global Humanitarian Award?
It was just the Global Innovation
Or
Award
Impact
that
Award.
was
Okay.
virtual. We did the regional competition here at the high school.
Yeah.
How long did you work together to prepare to get ready for the competition?
It was the first group that I started. Under like 6 months.
Yeah.
6 months.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, congratulations on completion of the project. That's awesome.
Cool, and one thing that was really great is we implemented the makerspace that has been in all of the buildings. So there are 2 at Lenahan, so it's been really a wonderful opportunity for these kids to explore.
Yes, sorry. So it was really fantastic to implement the makerspace. There's at least one makerspace in all the buildings here, and it's just really lovely that the kids got to experience using the GoPro, and it was a really good reason to use the GoPro as well. So they were able to implement that into their work, and they explored the makerspace quite a lot, and they really had a lot of good learning experiences hands-on. So. All right. Anything else? Any other questions? All right.
Well, you're always, when you have teams that qualify for the show at the state, you're always welcome to bring them ahead of time for a test run with the board.
Yes, that would be wonderful. But guys, do you think that we I don't think I need to. So it was actually the team. Several team members actually brought up that maybe we should have extra meetings this last week. So we did meet every day after school this past week except for Friday. So to make sure that they were all up to snuff, practicing their project and their presentation. So they did a really great job. It was worth the extra time, I think.
And we really needed it.
All right.
Well, congratulations. and
Congratulations,
Thanks for
guys.
sharing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Okay, so now turning to the consent agenda, we've got minutes from our February 7 board meeting. Were there any items of note in personnel, Dr. Ryan? Interagency agreements and contracts, an agreement with Developing Minds to provide a 1-hour virtual workshop at Lenahan, a contract with Iowa Valley Community College District for summer college credit program, a proposal from WBC Mechanical for the removal and installation of 77 boiler tubes at Franklin Elementary, and a proposal from Heartland Business Systems to purchase 20 Cisco access points. A number of interagency special education agreements with both East Marshall and with BCLUW. Open enrollments, 1 in for the remainder of this year and then 4 out for next year. Any items of note, Paulette and Bills? Anything on the financial report? Questions about any of those matters or items? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
McGinnis, Faltus, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. And are there any abstentions? Maybe perhaps Bonnie.
Do you want me to abstain from every vote?
I think you should abstain from this particular consent agenda because you're in there.
I abstain.
Just this one in particular.
Okay.
Okay. So it's 6-0 with 1 abstention. Anybody on the pink sheet? I guess not. They cleared out, so. We're up to you, Linda.
You guys get the fun chairs.
Fun chairs?
Yeah, you guys get the sides. Good evening. We have Linda Heveka here from Child Abuse Prevention Services, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the partnership work we've done and maybe a little bit about the umbrella of services they provide.
And I'm going to turn it over to Esmeralda Monroy. She's going to get us started.
I'll go ahead and start. Good evening. Thank you so much for having us here today. My name is Ezzy Monroy, and I work for Child Abuse Prevention Services. We are here today to give you just a brief overview with our services and programs that we offer, and then we will tell you a little bit more about our school-based programs that, of course, we provide in partnership with the district. Next slide. Yep. So for those of you that might not be familiar with CAPS, we are a private nonprofit agency. We serve Marshall County, and our main mission is to prevent child abuse through education, support, and community connection. All of our programs are offered free and voluntarily. Next slide. So a very brief overview of all of our programs. Probably our better known programs are our home visiting programs. So with our home visiting programs, families are connected with a family support specialist who provides support, education, and developmental monitoring for their children. Connection to community resources is also one of the big things that we provide. With our home visiting, we do have 2 different programs. This is the foundation for both of them, but one does offer a little bit more of a crisis focus. So we do have families, for example, that might be experiencing homelessness. And so that program can offer a little bit more of support in those types of situations. Our crisis services, we do offer our crisis childcare program. And this is a program that offers families a safe option for childcare while parents work on addressing whatever immediate crisis situation they might have. Our crisis intervention program provides families with intense support over a period of 3 months. And during this time, they accomplish specific goals, and our goal is for them to attain stability and safety for the family. Our NEST program is probably our next really well-known program in the community. This is an incentive-based program for families that qualify, and this gives them access to necessary baby items such as diapers and formula. So they earn points, and then they can come spend their points in our NEST store. And I just wanted to say quickly that we just have such an amazing partnership with all of the school resource specialists. I cannot tell you how many times I talk to Meredith over at the high school or Stacy at the high school. And so we really are so thankful for them. They continuously refer students and families to our programs and work really, really well with us. So we are thankful to them. Next slide. So our school-based programs, we do, of course, have our migrant tutoring program, which is individualized tutoring that we offer to students that the district identifies. And we work with children up to 3rd grade. So we do have a tutor, Alondra. She works with a lot of students at the schools after school. She does work with a lot of students at home. She does have some students that she picks up and works with at the public library and then brings home. So we're really proud of that program because it really is individualized to meet the needs of the students and meet the families where they're at. Our sexual abuse prevention program, we do work with kids preschool through 4th grade. This is a multi-session program that teaches students about appropriate touches, body awareness, and self-care. And then our adolescent sexual health program works with students 5th to 12th grade. This is also a multi-session program that provides medically accurate and age-appropriate programming for sexual health and responsible decision-making. So with both of our sexual health programs, they are evidence-based or evidence-informed. And these are curriculums that are selected by and approved by the state. Again, in totality, they are offered preschool through 12th grade, age-appropriate. Parents are notified and they have the option to opt out. And we do have some students that opt out. It is offered at no cost to the school district because we have a variety of funding sources, as you can see listed here. So first, I will talk to you a little bit more about our Care for Kids program. And remember, this is offered to students preschool through 2nd grade. So with this curriculum, it is developmentally appropriate and trauma-informed, aimed towards the prevention of childhood sexual abuse. So we have 4 sessions, as you can see listed here. Each session is half an hour. And session 1 focuses on asking for help. We help students discuss and identify safe adults that they can ask for help. Session 2 really focuses on understanding and identifying your feelings. We talk a lot about that mixed up or confused feeling that a student might feel if someone they really like and trust is doing things to them or that making them feel uncomfortable and unsafe. Lesson 3 focuses on bodies, and we do talk about there being private parts of the body and parts that are private. And then lesson 4 talks about asking for permission. So kind of starting that conversation of consent, if you will. Our 3rd and 4th grade, we do offer 3 lessons. They're each half an hour. You can see them listed here. The first one focuses on body safety. We define what abuse is. We, again, continue with that theme of identifying trusted adults. And our focus is to promote open communication with adults that they trust. Lesson 2 talks about boundaries. And so we define what a personal boundary is, how to recognize your own boundaries, and defining consent. And then finally, the last lesson focuses on grooming. We help students understand what grooming is. We talk about internet safety and help them learn to identify whether it's in-person or online grooming. So with our kiddos in this age group, we do have an evaluation that the teachers complete after all of the sessions are completed. And so teachers work on these 9 measures that you see listed here. It's a pre and a post. So teachers evaluate the classroom. And they evaluate how students were doing, for example, with being able to name the emotions of others, for example, before the curriculum was offered and after. And so out of the 9 measures, so far this school year, we're not done, 8 of the 9 measures showed improvement. The one that did not, which is typical, is number 6, uses correct name for genitals. The thing to remember with our program is that we're not there the entire school year. We're there over the course of a month maybe or a couple weeks. So it would be interesting for us to be able to evaluate over the course of the next school year or during that school year, the effectiveness of our program, not just that month when we're there. Next slide, please. So Linda, we'll start here, but are there any questions with that first half with those younger kiddos?
For the Care for Kids, you said it's only for a month, or is it for a semester?
So for Care for Kids, Karina, it's 4 sessions that are covered. And it really is coordinated with the school and with the counselors when we can get in.
Oh, okay.
This year, we did have Matt's help, and we thank him for that because we were really able to make good use of our time and be very efficient to get sessions scheduled together. In previous years, we've done one, and they didn't have time until, a month or two later for us to come back and do the second one. And so this year, we do appreciate your help, Matt, with that, because we think that it was so efficient to have them back to back, and it really helps the kids. It makes it click, and it helps them make those connections when they're nicely scheduled.
So ideally, would this be like a monthly, 1 session a month, or weekly, or?
Ideally, we would love to cover the sessions like within a month. So we would have 1 lesson a week, maybe. Again, it just kind of helps with that understanding for the kids and making that connection.
Okay.
So do you try to get all the programming done within the first semester?
We would love to. We would love to get all our programming done at the beginning of the year. And I was actually just having a conversation with Lori, our educator, today. And she was talking to some of the counselors, and they said, Lori, I would love it if you could come in earlier, because it does often, as you all well know, it does take children a while to process this information and to understand, hey, did this happen to me? And so her comment was, I would love for you to get all your sessions done towards the beginning of the year. Because if it takes that child a few months to make that connection and to ask for help, it's still while school is in session. So we can follow up. And so again, we would love to get in earlier in the year and have that nice flow.
So you're still providing services at this time?
Yes, we are. Lori is done with most of the elementary schools here in the district, but she does have a couple sessions yet. Okay, so I will let Linda talk about the older kiddos.
Okay, so with adolescent sexual health, this starts in 5th grade, and actually this is the first year that we've done 5th grade programming. So we kind of expanded our services, and so if you look at 5th grade, we contacted the school personnel, the administrators and counselors, and they helped us develop what we were going to speak to the students about. So you can see all the things that they identified in the topics we discussed. And then 6th grade, we use a curriculum called Draw the Line, and it's really about students learning where to draw boundaries, and really it's all about peer pressure and refusal skills, how they handle that. Next slide. So then going on to the 7th through 12th grade, this really gets into a comprehensive sexual education program, and you can see all the topics we discuss, and one grade builds upon the next. So what we teach in 7th grade then builds on 8th grade and then keeps going up. The big thing we talk about specifically with this age group is really the relationship, what is healthy and what is unhealthy. A lot of students don't know the difference. And honestly, as we're speaking to them, once again, it takes a while for it to process. They may disclose later that they're in an unhealthy relationship. And then we work with the counselors or outside sources to get them the help they need. Communication, setting boundaries, age of consent is huge. That we talk to students about. They don't know that Iowa has laws around age of consent. So we talk to them a lot about that, and then sexting and online safety, and then abstinence and contraceptives and STDs. And then the biggest thing we have with our older students is we have a question space where our educators do a really good job of creating an environment that is safe. And they can ask any question that they want to ask, and it's anonymous. So then our educators respond in a medical accurate way and answer any questions they may have. They also have the option, they may contact our our educators after class, and they might have something individually they want to disclose. If it comes too sensitive, they'll bring in like the school counselor. That's how we handle it. We're not there to be there for a length of time. We're just there and most time we're there like for 4 to 5 sessions for those students. Next slide. So of course there's evaluation, and with the adolescent sexual health is conducted by UNI. So what you see up there is from last school year. So the first thing we look at is knowledge, and 8 out of 8 knowledge areas showed significant improvement from a pre-test to a post-test, which this is the first thing we want to do. We want to increase their knowledge, and 98% of the students reported they learned some or a lot that they didn't already know, which we were happy with that result. Then comes self-assessment, and this is all about students knowing how to access resources and feeling comfortable talking to a trusted adult. With this area, we did 4 out of 7 self-assessment items showed significant improvement. And if you look at that next bullet, 28% of the students feel more comfortable talking to parents and a trusted adult. This is an area that we know we need to work on, where students can first identify a trusted adult and then feel comfortable having those conversations. And the last but not least is the attitudes and beliefs. And as you know, anytime you're looking at attitudes and beliefs, this is a slow process. This is going to take some time. But currently, we are at 3 out of 6 of the attitude beliefs showed significant increase after a pre and post test. Okay, next slide. So when I talked about that we want to help kids feel more comfortable talking with the trusted adults, we also have a coalition that looks at all that evaluation, and you can see all of our partners that attend the meetings. The school district is also one of them that attend the coalition meeting, but we really focus on how do we educate students, how do we educate parents, and how do we educate the community? And then from that, we had a parent outreach activity that we did at the school in December at the high school, and we picked probably the busiest day at the high school to have a parent outreach. Attendance wasn't grand, but we did have great coverage from the Times-Republican, the radio stations, and they put it on the school YouTube channel. And last I knew, we had over 180 some people viewed it on YouTube, which is great. So you can see our partners with that are the Marshalltown Police Department and Center Associates, and we're on schedule to have another parent outreach in April. And we're also hoping to have a lunch and learn for professionals as well. And next slide. So here's our contact information. You can always reach us if you have any questions. But I do want to echo what as he said about thanking the Marshalltown School District. Not only are they're so flexible, but even allowing us to come in for 4 to 5 sessions at every grade level, preschool through high school, is huge. And we are very fortunate in Marshalltown to be able to offer that, but also that you accept it. Other counterparts around the state don't have that. They are struggling to get into the schools. We have never had problems getting into our schools in Marshall County. So thank you once again for putting that as a priority. Any questions?
Before questions, I just want to piggyback. If you remember back in November, we talked a little bit about coming off this summer, we wanted to enhance the work we were already doing around adolescent sexual health. So we had reached out to CAPS and said, what more can we do? What can we do to expand what we already have going on? And that's some of the things that they've spoken about here is we've reached out to more grade levels than ever before and ensured that we're providing more comprehensive coverage. Just wanted to make sure we covered that.
Yeah. I think we're projecting that we're going to serve over 1,000 kids more than we have in previous years. So we're excited about that. Because not only did we offer it to Marshalltown schools, but because we were doing it here, we offered it to the other surrounding schools as well.
One thing that I forgot to mention was we did partner with the district at the beginning of the school year to host parent meetings for the younger kids. And so we did host 4 meetings. They were in Spanish, English, Karen, and Burmese. Between all of the meetings, we had 31 people that attended. And a welcome surprise was that majority of them attended the Burmese language meeting. We held that at Rogers. So, again, numbers weren't great, but a great connection that we made was that there was a Rakhine gentleman from the Rakhine community attended one of those meetings, and he said, I want to connect with you. Can you come offer this meeting at my church? This is great information. We need to know about this. Culturally, it's just not discussed. And so we're working with the Chin Church here in town and the Rakhine Church and also with the Karenni community to offer these meetings in those languages. So we know that there is a need for this kind of information. One other thing that I just wanted to mention quick, I was talking to our educator who does the younger grades today, and she averages about 3 to 5 disclosures when she is in the schools during the school year. So kiddos will raise their hand and they'll say, Miss Lori, that happened to me, or this is happening to me. And so because of confidentiality, we don't have the child's information. The counselor or teacher is there, and so they will follow up with the appropriate steps. But she definitely is on the forefront and has the disclosures. And so, again, I think it just goes to prove how important our partnership is. It does take kiddos some time to process this and to identify and make that connection. Oh, that happened to me. This is happening to me. And through our partnership, they can see that a trusted adult could be their teacher, could be Miss Lori, could be the school counselor. But Miss Lori is there to offer the information. They make that connection, and then they feel comfortable talking to the teacher about it. So once again, we are so thankful, and we hope to continue with our partnership and continue offering these parent meetings. Yes, thank you very much.
I think this is a great program, and thank you for sharing. Just the kids that you're reaching out to, I think it's so important to have this education in our schools. It's so much needed, especially because, like you mentioned, some of our minorities don't have those conversations at home. So just making that connection and making them feel comfortable. So I think this is something that needs to be prioritized as far as coordinating and making sure that you're getting in. So the kids are getting this. So thanks, Matt, for doing that. And I hope we continue with that because I hear so much about it and it sounds great.
And I really appreciate the fact that you've gone kindergarten through 12th grade.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the whole spectrum on. So it's good work.
Yep.
Yeah, I attended one of those sessions for the younger kids at Fisher, and it was really, really well done. And it was, a little disappointing, especially with what we went through this summer to have, a few number of parents attend that. But I think it was a great idea to videotape those and to make those available, because I think for a lot of people it's, they're uncomfortable conversations. And, I think it might be easier to sometimes, watch a video on it and then to follow up if, need be. But I think it's really important that we, cover the pre-K-12 grade span, because I think our best opportunity to help kids is by building those relationships, that knowledge, and having them feel comfortable with being able to go to somebody if something's not right. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, good evening. This is the MHS recap for today. We're going to start with state swimming. Like Mr. Heitman said, it was about 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks ago, 2 Saturdays ago, and we started on Friday with prelims, and it was only individuals on Friday, and we had 9 individuals in that meet. 3 of them made it to the finals. And finals on Saturday, the 400 free relay placed 11th, which was the order of me, Stephen Blum, Carter Hunt, and Marcus Barker. In the 100 free, I finished 15th with Marcus Barker, who finished 16th in finals. I finished 14th in the 50 free, and for the 200 medley relay, they placed 20th with Dane Petty, Sam Griesel, Charlie Gilbertson, and Carter Hunt. The cherry on top of that meet for us was beating CR Washington, because that's the first time we've ever done that in school history. So it was kind of cool to do that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so this past weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they had state wrestling. So we had 3 qualifiers go. They placed high enough in the district tournament from the previous Saturday. And so first up, we had Gannon Williams, wrestled for the weight class 220. He ended up losing to a guy from Waverly Shell Rock in a regular decision. And then in his consolation match, he also unfortunately lost to a kid from Dubuque Hempstead in also a regular decision. Next, we had Tristan King. He wrestled 285, and he lost his first round in an 8-6 decision to a kid from Linn-Mar. But then he turned around and won his consolation match in a kind of dominant fashion. He pinned the guy in 18 seconds. So then he advanced to wrestle on Friday. But unfortunately, he lost in a major decision to a kid from Dowling. And then Xavier wrestled 126, and he lost to a kid from Fort Dodge in a regular decision, and then had lost his consolation match to a kid from Dubuque Hempstead. But he's only a freshman, so that bides well for his future. And even though I know that Gannon and Tristan were a little disappointed with how they performed, it was still a great showing that we sent them to the state at all. So we have pictures. That was all of them. And then up on the right, that's Tristan wrestling, and on the bottom right is Gannon wrestling. So then we had state bowling. Today we had our individual competition, and that was at Maple Lanes in Waterloo. So we had one girl qualify for the individual, and that was Sydney Dannon. And then the individuals for the boys' side were Damon Borton, Dimitri Furneaux, Aaron Radde, I don't know how to say that, and Drew Wilder. And then tomorrow they get to compete in the team competition. So that was the guys, and they qualified for the 8th year in a row by winning their district meet. So they'll be competing tomorrow. And then the end of the girls' basketball season, they competed on Saturday. And unfortunately, they lost to Ankeny Centennial in a 22-73 loss. But Rachel scored 9 points with 3 three-pointers. Sophie also scored 9 points, Lily scored 2 points, and Paige scored 2 points.
On the music side of things, the band Pasta Dinner is happening right now from 5 to 7. The band concert yesterday, both the Wind Symphony and the Symphonic Band performed. They did a very good job, both of them. This last Saturday, the Southside Transit Show Choir went to Spirit Lake to perform, and we got 3rd in the 4A division. We didn't make it to finals, but that's okay because there were a lot of people there. The orchestra concert is coming up in the next couple of weeks, and after all of these concerts and competitions, the band, orchestra, and choir are going into the circle of solo and ensemble and large group ensemble and getting ready for those performances.
Tonight at the Journey Church, there's a pep rally at 5 p.m. There was free pizza and free tickets to the game tonight. And then the sub-state game, it was versus Waterloo East at the Roundhouse, and the tip-off is at 7 tonight, so go ahead and do that after this, I guess. And to get there, Marshtown boys basketball beat Waukee for the first time since January 12, 2010, and that was with a score of 66-62 on Friday. And then spring sports are starting. So track started today, I believe, for girls, and tomorrow for boys. And then baseball open gyms have begun, and boys tennis captains are named. And that's Niall Christensen, who's a junior, Colin Schmidt, and Kevin Strand, who are both seniors. And then some upcoming events for you is that there's a vocal concert at MHS at 7 p.m. on Thursday. District speech is at MHS, and that's all day on Saturday, February 26th. And there's a basketball sub-state, and that's Friday, February 25th, and that's to be announced and to be determined for the time and place.
And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Just for a future reference, if there's a special topic that any of you would like to present on related to any of the activities, like STEP program or what have, feel free to reach out to me. I meant to send you an email after the last meeting. I know a number of you have presented before for History Day and other things, but you're always welcome to offer something up. I'm sure the board would be interested to hear about it.
Okay.
Yep.
Don't even have to tell you to come up, do we, Matt? You're just
No, I watched the schedule, know my place.
Johnny on the spot.
Yeah, I was well trained by B. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about dyslexia. As many of you know, I sit on the state board for dyslexia, and it's been a topic of interest, so I just want to give an update. And then towards the end, I want to talk a little bit about the work that the school district's been doing in this area. Amy, if you'd please. So just a little bit of background, if you haven't been following, back in 2018 during the legislative session, Iowa Department of Education was tasked to create a task force. And the goal of that task force was to study what is dyslexia, what do we do to teach students who have these characteristics, and what are the practices we should be seeing in Iowa. It took about a year for that study to happen, and in November of 2019, they released those findings. And the findings broke things down across different categories. So what should schools be doing? What should our area education agencies be doing? What should higher education be doing? And then some things about classroom teachers and families, as well as in the Department of Education, and what should they have implemented. Like everything, it takes about another year to get stuff going. So in 2020, during the legislative session, they moved forward with Senate File 2356. Now, 2020 might ring a bell because it was really the heat of everything going on around the pandemic. So even though these rules moved forward, our attentions were really split across a variety of things. This has come back to light as things have stabilized a little bit more. But some of the things that came out of that legislative session was first, the Iowa Board of Educational Examiners needed to develop an advanced endorsement focused on dyslexia. They also needed to update Iowa's definition and align it to a national definition of dyslexia. And then they needed to make sure that all school districts had a foundational level of learning around dyslexia. And there was a module created through the Iowa Reading Research Center that has a timeline for all educators, including paraeducators and administrators, to complete. So this year's been the first year that the Iowa Dyslexia Board has been meeting, and it's a really interesting but incredible opportunity. We have people from private agencies on there. We have family members on there who represent either they're dyslexic or their children are dyslexic. I'm fortunate enough to represent school management and leadership on there, as well as being an adult with dyslexia. So what we've been doing is, once we got past the initial board work, what are our priorities, what are our rules, how are we going to function? We started to dig into that recommended task force list and tried to figure out what are the things we're able to cover and move forward with. Because our goal is really to provide clarity and guidance around those task force recommendations. And here's the progress we've made during first semester. To begin with, the advanced endorsement requirement, Iowa Reading Research Center, in partnership with the University of Iowa, has developed a course sequence to get that advanced endorsement and has been supported by our board. It's right now the only endorsement course sequence that is supported by our group. If you Google dyslexia and endorsement, you'll see a variety of universities and colleges across the country who say they offer coursework in that. But currently, the Iowa Reading Research Center sequence is the only thing supported by our group. The first cohort has begun, and we're lucky enough that someone from our AEA is going through that. So they're here to support us in our ongoing work. We've also adopted the national definition of dyslexia. And in the next slide, I'll show you what that huge thing looks like. It's more like a paragraph. But we followed the language from the International Dyslexia Association's definition. And then the Iowa Reading Research Center, we asked them to update their module on dyslexia. Not that there was anything wrong with it, but as we continue to get a better understanding of what was expected of us from that legislative group and how we were supposed to move forward with that work, we asked that they make sure that they align their module with that. So they've done that. I'm not going to read this very long definition to you, this paragraph, but there are a few things that I want to point out and provide clarity about. Dyslexia is really when you struggle with accurate or fluent word recognition. And it is often followed by poor spelling and decoding abilities. It often does result from a deficit in phonological components of language. Those are those smallest pieces of language. So for example, if you're not an educator and you think about the word cat, you go cat. Those are phonemes, and then cat makes the word. The important thing about this definition that we've had to help people understand is there used to be this misnomer that if you're dyslexic, it may be related to your intellectual functioning or your IQ. And that's not the case at all. It really is how your brain functions around language and the acquisition and flow of language throughout your brain. So this semester, here's where we're spending our time as a board. We're trying to figure out what does professional learning look like at a state level, and the AEAs are really those entities that are going to be pushing that forward. We're focusing on instructional strategies. So many times you'll hear programs associated with dyslexia. You know, there's this reading program or this reading curriculum, and that's not the approach that we want to bring. There's instruction that schools can do without purchasing an expensive program, and that's really what we're promoting is how do you teach discrete skills in a systematic way. We also try to figure out the communication system. When you sit at a state level organization, how do you get that down to the classroom level? Because that's where the difference is made. It's the teachers who make the difference in teaching kids these skills. And then with everything, we're trying to develop some guidance documents because we want to make sure everyone's clear about what is the learning, what does the program expectations look like, and what are the guidelines on the do's and don'ts around best practices. And if you want to know a little bit more about what those best practices are defined as, we're really looking at a deeper layer of universal screening. So if you're familiar, the formative assessment system for teachers are FAST. 3 times a year we give to all of our students. And really it answers one question. Is there a problem or not? So that's what screening assessments do is they give you a general idea if a student's on track or not. Through the work, we need to figure out, though, if they're not on track, is there something about their decoding or their phonological awareness that's struggling? And that would be that next step of the screening that needs to be developed. We're trying to figure out through the Iowa Department of Education, what would be some of those recommended practices to do that level. And then how do we make sure that all teachers understand what are the characteristics of explicit systematic instruction? Not what program to use, but what does teaching look like that covers these kinds of behaviors? Where our district is at in this work, professional learning, we've had some small teams attend the state level work around Decoding Dyslexia's annual conference. This year I was pretty excited to see there were more than usual who attended. And I was fortunate enough to be a speaker there talking about the work Marshalltown has done. So that was pretty exciting to do. Many of our educators have already taken the module through the Iowa Reading Research Center. We haven't pushed a requirement of that yet because there's a timeline associated with that. And especially with Shauna being new to us, we need to figure out what that looks like. But we've promoted those opportunities through newsletters and other communication. People have stepped up and done that early. Our instructional leaders are going to go through a dyslexia simulation later this week. So that's going to be real exciting. Our CPDLs and Shauna are going to go through and get a little bit of sense about what is it to operate with dyslexia. And then we're starting to talk a little bit more about what professional development needs to occur. Now that's somewhat limited because we haven't got the guidance from the dyslexia board, but we can start doing some early conversations and starting to think and plan around that. And then for our special educators, we're consistently providing them free opportunities for learning through online modules, research articles. I do a monthly newsletter, and there's also always professional learning opportunities in the bottom of that, and this is an area that I often cover. Some of the instructional materials we currently have that would support the work, really great reading. It is systematic explicit instruction when done properly, and it covers a lot of the characteristics we're talking about. And then a supplemental material most of our elementaries have is called the Haggerty Phonemic Awareness Materials. And they're just additional practice materials about phonemic awareness and building those phoneme skills. So where are we thinking of going from here? Well, we are going to make sure that everyone completes that dyslexia module by July 1st, 2024, if not before that. We're thinking about how to develop a comprehensive district-wide committee to study and offer recommendations. We're also looking at having a team of educators complete the initial level of the Orton-Gillingham Academy training. Orton-Gillingham is one of the instructional approaches most often associated with dyslexia instruction. We continue to work in partnership with the literacy consultant from Central Rivers AEA who's enrolled in that advanced endorsement. And then as always, we're trying to learn ourselves. How can we increase our knowledge for dyslexia screening, identification, and instruction? And some of the main places we can do that are professional conferences where these are focus topics. So Plain Talk about literacy and learning is annual conference. It's always a big keynote speaker there. The IDA, the International Dyslexia Association's annual conference. It's funny, it says International Dyslexia Association, but it's always in the US, so no international flights, too bad. And then Iowa Decoding Dyslexia Conference happens every year in Des Moines area at DMAC, and that's a great conference to attend. And then we're going to try to figure out what's that conversation look like with our building leaders about embedding this learning into the systematic process we do every day with our MTSS work. Just a brief update on where things are at and where we are, trying to stay in step with what's coming out from the state, but what questions do you guys have?
Obviously, you know that this is like my passion, so obviously I don't have a question, but I appreciate the fact that you're willing to talk about it. For so many years, educators were unwilling to talk about dyslexia. And there was this even controversy about whether or not it existed. And if you've ever taught these students, you know it exists. And so, thank you for what you're doing.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks.
Easy.
Alrighty, I'm here to present some information about students, in a sense, but mostly staff data. I was told that, this board really is interested in data and statistics, which is very exciting to me as a statistician. This also, I just want to preface this, I have 10 minutes, so I'm going to be brief. It's going to be hard because my PhD dissertation was on the way the federal government classifies race and ethnicity, so this is what I researched for years and focused on, so it's a passion of mine, so, but I will be brief. Feel free to interrupt at any point in time if you have any questions. So go ahead. Please. Just a few things before we get going. I just want to be clear that, we can only measure some parts of somebody's identity or demographic. Our identities are multifaceted and, we can only measure, what we ask. So a lot of times when we're speaking about demographics, we're going to be speaking about race and ethnicity because that is, those are two components that we do ask. The race and gender demographics are comparing students and staff. Those are from the 2021 school year, as are the state averages. And then the side-by-side comparisons that I have with students and staff, I used certified staff, our teachers, mainly because that's who they have the most contact with. So that's why I chose certified staff to compare with. Okay, so let's get going here. When we're looking at all staff, just in general, we have that breakdown of about 24, 76-ish percent, with the majority being female. But, that's all of our staff, so that can be, a little misleading because, for example, buildings and grounds is almost 70% male. Certified staff, as you'll see, is almost 70% too. So there's that's the bigger picture, I guess, overall across the entire district. Go ahead. Admins, when I say admins in this slide, I'm referring to directors, principals, associate principals, dean of students, and the superintendent. So that level of administration, we have that breakdown. Principals here, you can see that breakdown about 64-36-ish. And if you see, sorry, could you go back one? Sorry, Amy. You'll see there at the bottom that state average is about 70. Go back one more. That's okay. There's a state average at the bottom of so there the admins, the state average is about 40% female, so we're pretty close to that. And then the next slide was the principals, a little bit under that, but very close, with the state being about 43% female. So pretty similar to what Iowa looks like as a whole. Thanks, Amy, sorry. And then here's certified staff. About 70-30 there, with 70% being female. The state average is about 76% female. So we have a little bit better proportion in that sense. But just to give you an idea of all of our new hires since January 1st for certified staff, only 41% have been female. So lately we have, I guess, been hiring more males than females when it comes to certified staff this year. Students is very similar to the state average. It's about 50, well, you can see they're about 52-48, which is really closely aligned with overall the state of Iowa. So there is that side by side with the certified staff, with the students. So again, we're predominantly females in the certified staff position, whereas we're pretty 50-50 when it comes to the students' genders. So here, I want to be clear before I go into more of the race and ethnicity. According to the federal government, there are 5 racial categories. White, and that includes MENA, which is Middle East North African. So that means, somebody in our statistics who identifies as Moroccan or North African, they are technically white, which I assume you could imagine the issues with that. But there's white, Black or African American, American Indian or Alaska Native, Asian, and then Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. Those are the 5 races. And then there are 2 ethnicities according to the United States, and that's Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin, or not. And so that's what we're going to be speaking about. So when you take a look at the entire staff, this is last year's data, it's 87.6% white. But I just told you that race and ethnicity are 2 separate things. However, in the state reports, for reasons I'm unclear of, they kind of combined the 2. So I said race and ethnicity were different. In these demographics, or in these graphics, you'll see Hispanic included as a race kind of combined. So here, when we're looking at the race or ethnicity of all staff, it's about 87.6% white. And again, this is last year's data. students, you can see there. And you'll see there on that slide that the state average in other districts, and they classify that, so their use of minority just means non-white. So the state average is about 26%, about 26% quote, minority students. And here you'll see that ours is over 68%. So we have a much higher percentage of quote, minority students or non-white students. I feel sorry, Amy, like the pressure is always on you. So there's our certified staff. Again, I'm stressing that these are last year's data. Over 90% white for our certified staff. And to kind of give you a picture of that, of our applicants since July 1st, 92% are white. So it is not as though, there's a higher proportion of our supervisors or our hiring managers disproportionately choosing white applicants. 92% of the applicants since July 1st have been white. And then you'll see the state average is 2.8% for quote minority. Ours is over 8%. So we have a more quote diverse, in that sense of one's identity, a more diverse staff than most school districts. Excuse me. And there you just see the top 3 identities when it comes to race or ethnicity for students compared to staff. That is extra tiny print there, I apologize. But you can still kind of get the idea. The students are there in red, the blue are in for staff. So I think that the message here is you can see that overwhelmingly, our staff are white. And then you can look at that large difference in those who identify as Latino or Hispanic. So then with our current software that we use for employees, our current electronic records, I pulled the actual current staff. So what you were looking at was last year's data. This is the current staff that we have. This is only their race. So this isn't combining race and ethnicity like the prior slides, like the state does. This is only race. You'll see 94%. So this is important because you can be, you can check that you are Hispanic or Latino and identify as white. And so here you won't see that Hispanic or Latino because that's ethnicity. This is just the race. So we have about 94% of our current staff racially identifying as white. And then the certified staff, it's even higher, 96.4%. But again, keep in mind that the other graphics included ethnicity in there. This is just speaking to the federal classifications of race. And how about for their ethnicity? You'll see there that we have all staff. It's about 11.3 current staff working right now identify as Latino. At 11.3 for all staff, and then just for our certified staff, it's about 8.2. And as a reminder, for comparison, 54% of students identified as Hispanic or Latino. And then I just threw a couple other statistics on there. Excuse me. About 10% of our staff identify as having a disability. That is a self-disclosure, like everything else here. It's self-disclosed. We are not presuming any race or ethnicity. Those are required fields by the federal government on our forms. Disability and veteran status, those are optional. So we have about 10% of staff identifying as having some form of disability, whether it's a visible disability or invisible disability. Roughly 2% identify as veterans. And then we have an amazing almost 60% of our staff, certified staff, have a master's degree or higher, which is a point of pride, I think, for us. And then, as always, I have to put where you can find our openings. So join our team. But any questions?
So, Nora, what are we going to do with this information?
So I think it's important. I think our goal is, ideally, the research shows anecdotally and, statistically, quantitatively as well, that representation matters. That it's so important for our students to see themselves reflected in the staff, and not just the staff teaching them, but the paraeducators and the custodians in the hallway. And so it's really important that we are doing our best to attract, retain, recruit a really diverse staff. And I think this shows, while it may not on the surface look like we have a very diverse staff, we do when you compare to other districts in the state. And when you look at our applicants coming in, it's not very racially diverse, but you can see that we're trying, and our numbers are better than other districts. But it's just important to note that we have a long ways to go when it comes to our staff mirroring, and I think it's important for our state legislators to see that a lot of people of color are not going into the profession. And so what could we can't change that here, but we all have representatives that we could be reaching out to saying, what can we do to get more people in the profession? We need to be growing our own. We need to be providing resources for students of all socioeconomic statuses to get into the profession. So kind of a couple of things. One, to show that while we have a long ways to go in mirroring our students' identities, we're a little bit better than average right now. And two, to show that we're not there yet, and what can we do to get more people into the profession? Because when you look at who's applying, it's not a diverse subset. So where are those people? A lot of people of color are not going into the profession, and what can we do to change that, to kind of bring some light to that?
So what is the, like for UNI, do you have like what their student population looks like? What are their demographics of teachers coming out of UNI?
I do not have that.
Okay.
I do not have that. What I can tell you is, when we looked at our current staff and how many of them identified as Hispanic or Latino, for certified staff, it was 8.2. And of our applicants since July 1st, only 3% have been Latino. And so it's not just a Marshalltown problem. Obviously, we're sitting, quote, more diverse than other districts. They're just not out there. And we need to be advocating to be getting a more diverse group of people into the profession.
Nora, I'd like to address this idea of why that's important for children to see this reflected in the staff. As a special educator, a level 1 special educator, many of my students were dyslexic, and I do have the training in dyslexia, and I was able to do this. For a few years, I had a paraeducator that had been dyslexic and whose parents had sent her to Minnesota to learn to read. And she would bring books to class that she was reading all of the time, and she would talk to the students about the books she was reading. She would also listen to them and talk to them about her experiences with learning to read as a dyslexic person. And this was very motivational to my students, because many dyslexic students are deeply ashamed of not being, it's terrifying to a child to come to school and he's intelligent and he's verbal and everyone's been telling him his whole life how smart he is, and he gets to school and he doesn't learn to read. That's terrifying. And having someone there who's been through that and who actually understands it and who's reading every day and talks to them about books, that was really important to my students, and it helped motivate them to keep trying.
One of the things, knowing that we've got a ways to go, especially in the teaching ranks, to have a demographic that mirrors our student demographic. One of the things that we've done is with our implementation of the Junior Achievement Program, especially when we first got it off the ground and we were recruiting from the larger businesses in the community, we really put an emphasis with the CEOs or the hiring managers as they solicited or twisted people's arms, to volunteer, as to try to get as many professionals of color to volunteer into JA. Again, not only, it's just important for our kids to see that people that look like them, speak like them, have similar cultural backgrounds, can do anything that they want to do. You know, if they work hard at becoming educated and do their best in school. And so I know that prior to COVID, we had really made some good inroads with that. But, you know, obviously, it's been a little bit more of a challenge. We've got more people that are doing multiple schools or multiple sessions just to make sure every classroom is covered. But hopefully when businesses are back to feeling more comfortable about people going out or coming in, we can again try to do a better job of having a more diverse volunteer force also. And as Nora said, you know, growing your own. When we started the intro to teaching and field experience opportunities at Morristown High School, it's for all students, but we particularly wanted to try to encourage students of color to consider pursuing those programs if they felt interested and passionate about it.
We're also trying to grow our own with introducing programs to our current staff who are not certified teachers, and they're like alternative pathways to licensure. So we brought in somebody, for example, from William Penn to come and speak to whomever wanted to come. We had a meeting in December, and it was they presented their 4-year plan for somebody to become licensed, and the amazing funding that can come with that. They can get a 4-year teaching degree for under $20,000. And so there are alternative pathways, and we do have a few individuals pursuing that, but that's another way to really grow your own and, you know, hopefully not only continue to grow your employees, but also to potentially recruit staff of color. And again, I know that we're only speaking to race and ethnicity here. There are many identities, but again, we don't, for example, we don't measure how many of our staff identify as LGBT, or, you know, there are many parts of one's identity that we don't measure, but that is what we, you know, can speak to definitively.
Well, thank you, because this question actually has came up to me about, you know, our demographics and our staffing and our students. It's very visible in Department of Ed website, but never about our staff. So thank you. And that's something that, you know, you can openly share with other people because you just brought it up. So thanks. And I think it's useful information. I specifically have an example of, you know, students being able to see you and reflect themselves in you, because I've had a particular student at Rogers Elementary, and now she's a teacher. And she always tells me, well, I used to look at you, Miss Karina, you know, I wanted to be a teacher like you. So it does. It impacts a student to see themselves in somebody like them, that looks like them.
I mean, it's overwhelming, the qualitative and quantitative data that speak to how much representation truly matters. And I mean, as I can even personally, you know, I remember watching Vice President Harris's inauguration, and I mean, I was bawling. I was crying, you know, I would consider myself a very privileged person. But even that, seeing a woman in that type of role was very impactful to me. And so imagine these little ones too.
I guess I would just say to what I think Leah's point was, is that I think we're going to have to do this through the grow your own route, because I think you could hire every UNI graduate of color with an education degree and you would not change our overall staff demographics all that much.
Yeah, like what, my question was more, what are we gonna do about
Right.
this, right? Like, yeah. So I agree. I think the grow your own is very important. I think there probably are other avenues and programs that maybe we just don't even know about yet, that we should be looking outside of just our own like circle that we have today to try to expand and reach out. And there have got to be other programs that we could connect with that could help us change this, rather than relying on, you know, just anyone to change their mind about what career they go into.
Well, encouraging many of our high school students to consider education is one way, but we have had some paraprofessionals go back and get their teaching degrees, and I think they're working here.
Yeah, yes, we have, and also, and it's kind of the opposite of grow your own, but I have been speaking with other districts who do recruitments at HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. They travel the country, and also universities with a high percentage of Hispanic and Latinos. And I've been speaking to them about, was that a good use of your money? Did you get a lot of return on that? Did you find, more applicants? And so before I even, consider doing something like that, because that has a high dollar amount to traveling out of state to do that, I really want to make sure that they've seen that return on investment. And I've just kind of started those conversations. So it's not something I'm, advocating or committing to now, but it is, to your point, trying to be creative, and that may be looking outside of the state as well.
And that might be something good to partner with, for example, someone from the chamber on or what have, because a big part, it's not just about recruiting and hiring, but it's about retaining. And the one thing that Marshtown does have going for it that some other communities don't, that might also want to have a more diverse workforce, is it's a great community for which teachers of color can live and have a lot to do, related, that would be specifically related to their race, and ethnicity. Whereas I know in other communities I've been in, we strive to have teachers of color come in, and when we could successfully hire them, they felt like in order to find others, that had similar desires and passions culturally, socially, whatever, oftentimes they'd have to travel, whether it was to Chicago or somewhere else, and then ultimately they wound up relocating to areas that they felt were more inclusive or welcoming. And I think that's one thing that we do have in Marshalltown to offer that many other communities in Iowa don't.
And to that, I want one more thing. We speak about this a lot in our equity committee, and one of the things that one of the subgroups is dedicated or is tasked with recruitment and professional development. And one of those things that we have seen in research is exactly what Dr. Schutte was saying is, it's one thing to hire, but it's another to retain. And in order to retain, we have to create that culture where everyone feels safe and included. And we're going to be sending an email out next week soliciting anyone interested in joining an affinity group. And an affinity group is basically a club for staff members. And so, it's an email going out to all staff saying, hey, if you want to, if there were an affinity group for this, you'd want to join. Give me your ideas. So, a dog lovers affinity group. Maybe they get together every third Saturday at the dog park. Or a wine lovers. Maybe they have wine. Or LGBT. There's a group of staff members who identify as that, and they can have a group. Or new teacher, whatever, but that's another route that we're taking to try to have these groups focused on somebody's identity or hobby that they can find that ground with and have that collegiality. And that's another way the research has really shown people stay, is when they, can connect with people with like hobbies or identities. So that's another thing that we're doing.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thanks.
All right, the next thing is going to be very brief. You all already approved the Paramaster contract that we revised. I'm coming at you with another edit. It's at the very end. Probably try 11 maybe, or go up one page from there. One more, sorry. There we go. Two things we changed on this that's before you. One is adding tutor. The ASC is Academic Success Center. It's at the high school. We have one para in this role, and she requested to have tutor, which absolutely makes sense. So we just added the word tutor there. And then on the very last page, we agreed, we're going, starting next year, give a 30 cents per hour premium for anyone who has a bachelor's degree or a para certificate. We also wanted to add a CNA, a valid and current CNA, because we have health aides, and the CNA would be very beneficial in those roles. So those are the two changes that are before you today.
Makes sense.
Any questions for Dr. Ryan?
I don't know how important it is on page 7, Marshalltown needs to update the spelling on it.
Oh, no. That would definitely be me. Page 7?
Page 7 right there. Yeah, somewhere there, yeah.
Oh, yeah, thank you. That will also be an edit I will make.
Anything else? Questions? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the amended master contract between MCSD and the Chauffeurs, Teamsters, and Helpers Local Union 238 for the paraeducators?
Plus the spelling
Plus the correction of the spelling of Marshalltown on page 7.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
McGinnis, Hernandez, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you all.
Hello. This time of year, I try to keep these as short as possible just so you don't equate me with spending major dollars. But unfortunately, it turns out that way. I have before you the recommendation for the replacement of a third of our network, which is what I had brought the request for proposal to you about. So that is something that we have on a replacement cycle. We know what needs to be updated, and we know pretty much what product we want to go with, and then we ask vendors to submit proposals, and often they'll do equivalent brand type proposals. So we evaluate on several measures, and it doesn't always mean that we pick the lowest costing proposal because sometimes brand and model matter a lot to us as well, whether they're a local vendor, whether we've had good experience with them. So those things all went into this evaluation, and RTI is the vendor that we have chosen to recommend for this purchase. What I'm asking today is to be able to go forward with submitting an application to receive $278,576.76 to be able to get that money from E-rate. And then I would just have you be aware that the price tag to us would be $72,242.60.
Any questions for Amy?
How long is this equipment going to last?
About 5 years. We try to push it to, like, some of these pieces of equipment are actually 8 years old. They were implemented before there was a replacement plan. Often it's best to budget to ensure that you're able to financially afford things before they come to end of life. So we would prefer to be more about that 5-year range than this 8-year range. And we have worked out the replacement schedule, so it works with the Category 2 funding that's allotted with E-rate as well.
Other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the proposal from RTI for wireless networking equipment in the amount of $72,242.60 for the 22-23 E-rate funding year as presented?
Move to approve.
Second.
Lowry, Faltis, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much.
All right. So as we begin this certified budget process, I wanted to review 3 key puzzle pieces, if you will, in this process, and especially since we have some new board members.
At this time of year, each and every year, there's a lot of talk about supplemental state aid and how much it will increase for the upcoming school year. And the legislature technically has 30 days at the beginning of each session to set the SSA growth rate for the upcoming year. And you may have been watching the news lately, and last week our governor signed the bill into law, which resulted in a 2.5% increase in the supplemental state aid rate for next year. There you go, thanks. So the certified budget process is really to do two things. It's for the board to establish and certify the property tax rate for the upcoming school year, which is the 2022-23 school year, or what I frequently refer to as fiscal year 23. And the other thing is to publish consolidated expenditures for virtually all, or the majority of our funds that we have. This is a little bit different process than the line item budget process, but this certified budget really becomes the framework on which the line item budget is built. So those are kind of the two things that the board will be doing. You want to go to the next slide, please? You've previously learned that school funding is enrollment driven. And now we know that that 2.5% increase in SSA for fiscal 23 equates to an increase per student for next year of $181 in the regular program cost. In the school finance world, this $181 per student increase is often referred to as new money. And so new money is a term that you'll want to remember because we say that frequently. Because the formula is enrollment driven, the 2.5% increase at the state level doesn't guarantee that you can go back, well, doesn't matter. It doesn't guarantee a 2.5% increase at the district level. So as you remember, we experienced a decrease in enrollment of 45 students this past October. So when we take that $181 increase per student, that higher SSA number times a lower enrollment number, that actually equates to our money, our new money in our district being a 1.37%. Instead of a 2.5. The next slide, you may recall seeing this chart when we presented the certified enrollment report to the board back in December. And so I just wanted to throw this in here, and what we want to pay attention to here is the blue bars. These are the certified enrollment numbers over the last decade. And those certified enrollment numbers are the number that is used for the funding calculation in the certified budget process each year. As with anything finance related, it's important to look at the trends over time. And as you can see, over the last decade, we've experienced declining enrollment in 6 of those years. And currently, our October of 2021 enrollment of 5,287.5 is actually the lowest enrollment of the last decade. I'm not sure if you new board members are aware or have seen it, but we did have an enrollment analysis done in 2018-19, and then we had that updated also a year ago. And those updated projections continue to show just a slight decline in enrollment over the next couple of years. So the second, important piece of this budget process is our certified enrollment.
So do we know how many students we're losing to homeschooling and private schools, as well as open enrollment?
We do not have many students that are enrolled in the homeschool assistance program. but they changed a couple years ago, and so parents can still provide homeschooling on their own outside of the school district's program, and they don't have to report to us anymore. So we don't know, how many families might be doing that, but we don't have many that are enrolled in the homeschool assistance program. Did that answer your question?
It does. It does and it doesn't, but yeah, right.
So when we take those pieces of the puzzle, the supplemental state aid and our enrollment, and we put them together, and we talk about our new money, you can go to the next slide, Amy. Thank you. And I know this slide is incredibly way too small. There's no way you can read it. So I'm going to actually plug in here and go to this calculator, if it will go. So the link to this calculator, this is an IASB tool, and I actually included the link in board docs there in case any of you are really bored and want to go play around with the numbers. But anyway, when you get in here, you can go and pick any of the 327 school districts that you're interested in looking at in the state. But we, of course, just want to look at Marshalltown. So this calculator actually has the 2.5% increase in SSA plugged in. It also has our certified enrollment plugged in. And what this shows us, here across the top, we have several fiscal years. I wonder if I can make that. Starting back with fiscal 18, going through the year that we are currently in of fiscal 22, and looking at fiscal 23, which is the budget process that we are starting to go through right now. And then we have 4 years of projections out there also. Okay, so the second line, the budget enrollment or certified enrollment, has our actual enrollment figures for the past few years. For fiscal 23, we know that in October, our certified enrollment was 5,287 students. The line underneath that is the supplemental state aid increase each year. Several years ago, it was normal to get a 4% increase in supplemental state aid. And as you can see, in the last several years, we haven't even come close to a 4% increase in state aid. Fiscal 18 was a 1.1, 19, 1. You can see going across there. Now the last couple years, we have been making a little bit of progress, but 2.3, 2.4, 2.5 for next year, that doesn't even begin to touch when we're looking at 7.5% inflation.
And declining enrollment.
And declining enrollment, it doesn't quite keep up. So the next line, shows the increase in the dollar amount per student, which we previously discussed. And that comes down to, they also included a $5 per pupil equity payment in here for next year. But that equity payment doesn't apply to our district because our district cost per pupil was already above what some other districts are, so we don't get that equity payment. So state cost per pupil next year, $7,413. Our district cost per pupil next year is $7,419. So we're still $6 above some other districts. So basically you take your number of students times that 7,400 and this becomes your regular program funding. Below that, I'm going to skip several of these lines that are more about the formula, which we can talk about at a later time if you'd like. But I really want you to look at this new money line and the percent new money line. So remember how we talked about a 2.5% at the state level doesn't guarantee 2.5% at the local level because of those enrollment increases and decreases from year to year. So as you can see over the last several years, the district has experienced coming off of increased enrollment for fiscal 18, we had a 3.27% increase in our new money based off of the state increase of 1.1 in the supplemental state aid. If we go over here to the current or fiscal 23, which is what we're looking at, the state increased at 2.5%, but because we have declining enrollment, we are only getting a 1.37% increase. That 1.37% increase for our district equates to $528,000, about $529,000. Keep in mind that, even in the best of economic times before we headed into this COVID pandemic and 7.5% inflation, $500,000 does not keep up with the cost increases that a district sees on an annual basis. So that's for fiscal 23. And then the out years here, when you open this file up, if you want to go play with it, the enrollment projections that are out here are actually the numbers that the Department of Ed has just based on, it explains it at the bottom where they get their enrollment projections. So the Department of Education is predicting that our enrollment is going to continue to go down for the next couple of years. And any of these green cells in here, you can change these numbers. You can change the increase in the supplemental state aid. You can change the enrollment numbers. And what I like to look at this chart for, when we talk about 5-year projections, and it's so important for districts to have new money or increased revenue to keep up with the increased costs. We look at 5-year projections, and with the assumptions that are plugged in here right now, this would mean that over 5 years' time, we would have $2.3 million for 5 years. You can go in here and change, and what I really wanted to illustrate, it's going to be hard for you guys to see this. If we do just stable enrollment, and if we say 4% increase each year, look what that does for the new money over 5 years' time. Now you're at $7 million. I guess the point of showing you all of this is that low supplemental state aid on top of declining enrollment is hard to sustain over an extended period of time. Do you have any questions on this chart before I go back to the PowerPoint?
The data that was given here, how accurate was the data back in 2018 for enrollment changes?
I don't have that.
Okay.
I don't know what.
I would say, I think we're all aware that, that what's proposed out there could happen, and we're trying to go for a 4% increase would be tough. We need growth in our town, right, to provide those numbers.
Right. We need growth, and we need more support from the state level.
Yep. Is there anything that, from the board perspective, that we need to be looking at or do anything different? Because this is kind of alarming, to be honest.
Each year when the legislature convenes in January, start writing letters and talking to our representatives. We did have the three of them here one night and discuss some things with them. But yeah, it's just really important for them to understand that 2.5% at the state level does not equate to 2.5% at the district level.
I think that the other thing that, stands out to me is we're a diverse school, right? And we have needs that need to be met compared to other school districts. And I don't see that in the formula at all.
Well, keep in mind, the whole funding formula is like over 400 lines of calculations. Tonight, we are just talking generally about 3 key pieces of this process. The supplemental state aid rate, certified enrollment, and then the next thing we're going to cover quickly is the importance of taxable valuation. So this is just a very high-level summary, and there are many other categorical funding streams that can only be spent on certain things. And so one of the things that the board approved in January was the SBRC application. And that within that, the board approved us asking for additional authority to fund ELL beyond 5 years. So the board has already approved a couple of pieces of the certified budget process before that process even starts. So this is the regular, we're talking about regular program costs here. We also get additional weighting for special ed and such. But when we talk about new money, it's just referring to the regular programs.
Back to your 2018 question. We had the original enrollment study. Basically, it said, this is prior to 2018, it said there's going to be ups and downs over the next 5 to 10 years, but at the end of the day, it's going to remain relatively stable, the enrollment. But then we had the tornado in 2018 where we dropped 90-some students. And then the following year, we rebounded with about 125 students. And then in 2020, we had the pandemic and we had the derecho, where again, we dropped almost the same number of students. But we have not recovered all of those students as we did with the tornado. So of course there's a recession in there as well, and job situations. So we brought RSP back in to re-look at that study after the tornado, because they have analytics that they can use based on other places that have experienced natural disasters and stuff. But I'm not sure that they have anything that's going to accurately figure out what a pandemic or derecho and the economy does. So
if anybody has a crystal ball, I'm not sure who it is, but I wish I knew them.
Paula, when we're looking at our certified enrollment, and as we are talking about our enrollment decreasing, with regard to the amount of dollars that we're getting, and we know that our open enrollment out, we have to take that into consideration also.
Right.
And so when we go to do our budget, do we have a mechanism to help us understand how much we need to take right off the top with regard to the students who have done their paperwork that have allowed them to open and roll out?
We will know exactly what that number is based on counts. Yeah.
Another silly question. Because per pupil cost is different in each district. When our students leave our district, what are the dollars that follow them?
Typically, it's the state cost per pupil.
Got it.
But we can do our district costs.
Okay. We have a choice in that?
Well, yes.
Okay. Good to know.
the good news is we have generally seen a net gain in fewer open enrolled out and more open enrolled in over the course of the 6 years I've been here, it's been slow, but it's been going in the right direction, so.
So if you want to advance one slide, Amy, thank you. The final piece that I just wanted to briefly cover here was the importance of taxable valuation. We do this calculation in this certified budget process to determine how much of our funding is going to come from the state as state aid and how much funding will actually come from our local property taxes. And so the last piece here to talk about this evening is tax rates, because those are a function of the district's taxable valuation. And as it says here, a district with a lower valuation per student will have a higher tax rate than vice versa. And due to the operation of the foundation formula, a majority of the district's tax rate is not subject to local discretion. So while some people might think that you as a board can sit here and arbitrarily say we're going to increase property taxes by $3 per thousand, that's not the way it works. There is very little discretion that the board has to actually impact that tax rate. Next slide. So this will show you we do continue to see a slight growth trend in taxable valuations here in Marshall County. These numbers come out in January each year, and for the coming budget year, we have a 1.43% increase in taxable valuations for the general fund, and for debt service and PEPAL, it's just under 0.5%. The 10-year average growth for this is a 2.25% over time. So it's good that we're seeing growth in that trend. Although if we go to the next slide, this is what is important for you all to understand as we move through this process, is that Marshall Town Community School District is actually, we are student rich, but we are property poor. So the state average property taxable valuation behind each student is about $392,000 for this year. Our school district has about $216,000 backing each student. So we have a lot of students spread out over not very much taxable valuation. And that can mean higher tax rates just by the formula, the way the formula works. There is one district in the state that has almost $1.5 million of taxable valuation behind each student, and they have a really low property tax rate. We are, for fiscal 22, Marshalltown ranks the 9th lowest out of 327 districts, and we're at about 55% of the state average as far as taxable valuation behind our kids.
Is that Spirit Lake?
Okoboji.
Okoboji area?
Yeah. Yep. And the lowest is Ottumwa.
Tumwa.
Yep. Next slide, Amy. The other thing I always like to point out and remember is that when it comes to property tax rates, you know, it's important to note there are several different taxing authorities, of which we are only one. So this chart will serve as a reminder that, you know, schools are typically one of the largest, and if not the largest, levying body in a consolidated tax rate. There are other entities involved also. And this is a perfect example because for this current year, the school district actually dropped their property tax rate from $18.34 per thousand to $18.14 per thousand. So we had a 20% or 20 cent decrease per thousand in what the school district asked for as far as from property taxes. But there were changes in other taxing authorities that offset that. So overall, a resident within the city of Marshalltown actually saw a 4-cent increase in their consolidated tax rate, which includes the 20% or 20-cent decrease that the school recognized. So just serves as a reminder that there are other pieces of the puzzle too. So in summary, as we head into this process, I just wanted to give you a general awareness of, what SSA, supplemental state aid, certified enrollment, taxable valuations, all play a part in this budget process. And with the current board meeting schedule that we have, our public hearing will be on April 4th of 2022. And backing into that timeline, that means that we'll have to publish our proposed budget sometime between March 15th and March 25th. So in the next couple weeks, myself, Dr. Schutte, and the Finance Committee will be having some important discussions in order to bring a recommended budget forward for board approval in about a month or so.
Questions for
Any questions?
Paulette? You've either answered all of their questions or you've overwhelmed them with information.
And they can't wait to go home and get into that calculator, I know.
Okay, thanks, Paulette. Policies.
Yeah, we had one first reading coming back, 406.6 annuities for licensed employees. Bonnie had this one. As you may remember, we simply changed the language so it mirrored our language that's for the classified employee tax shelter program. So I would recommend that we amend and waive the second reading.
Any questions? If not, is there a motion to amend 406.6 and waive the second reading?
So moved.
Second.
Lowry, Stanley? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Zach?
All right, so we have three different policies in front of us that we're looking at.
Karina stepped out.
The first one is 407.4, talks about dismissal and suspension of licensed employees. All we're doing here is looking to update the legal and cross references and mark it as reviewed.
Any questions for Zach on that one? Okay, it's reviewed.
The second one is 407.4-R, discipline of licensed employees. On this one, we want to look at removing the suspension with pay from the progressive discipline system. ISB does not currently have a matching policy, and this would align with our discipline matrix and exhibit that we have. And this will go in the first reading to amend.
Questions for Zach?
All right.
Come back.
All right. The third one is policy 407.4-E, disciplinary guidelines, licensed personnel. There's no changes that are recommended to exhibit. We just want to mark it as reviewed.
Any questions? Okay. See, that wasn't so bad, was it?
Yeah,
Zach?
no.
I think, in the interest of time, unless somebody really wants to talk about chapters 5 and 6 tonight, we might push that to the next meeting. Is everybody? Well, now I'm not so. Now I'm not so sure, Shauna.
She's distraught, so.
Is that okay with everybody if we move that? Okay.
Trying to get us out of here.
All right, so real quick, just wanted to share a couple updates. Had a really awesome meeting with the website task force last week. That was a discovery meeting. they had some really well-designed questions for us to kind of help the group think abstractly about who, not just the website and the features, but who we are as a district, and that's going to help with the branding aspect. Part of the point of the website is not just to provide a better tool than what we have now, but also to make it into a very excellent marketing tool. So that was part of their information gathering process to help design that website for our district specifically. So, and then the only other thing I want to share briefly was we do have our hiring event. I'm sorry, we discussed several different names, but hiring event 2 days this week. It'll be Friday from 1 to 5 p.m. And Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon, and that'll be over in Desjardins Hall. It's Iowa Valley Community College. It's over there on the MCC kind of area on the south side of town. So we encourage anybody who's interested in, we have many positions that will be kind of targeting at that event. So anybody interested in looking for work that makes a difference in the community, this will be a great opportunity.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Looking at reminders, the band pasta dinner is tonight. It's going to be tight. Sarah
You can still donate, though.
Well, you can still donate, even if you don't eat the pasta. That's exactly right. Sarah's got policies next month. We meet March 7th and 21st in March, and then upcoming committee meetings. The Insurance Advisory Committee's meeting this week, and it sounds like there's going to be a Finance Committee sometime soon, too. And then Miller will be here to present not the 7th, but the 21st of March. Committee reports, I think we had SIAC Committee, which is that you, Leah, and Bonnie?
Yeah.
Anything you want to share with us?
I left my notes at home.
I thought it was a really good interaction with students that participated in the SIAC committee. They had some really good suggestions and just about how to recognize and engage with teachers. And so, I mean, we spent quite a bit of time brainstorming and talking about how do we recognize the teachers that we have in our district today. And Shauna, I think, sent out to you all some
Certificates or
like certificates.
displaying information.
Yeah, so the idea was to have these certificates at like checkout counters all over town and let kids fill them out while their parents are, paying for groceries or whatever, and then have a big window at Hy-Vee and a big window at Menards and everywhere where these are all posted and people can see them when they come in.
We were talking too about a window of time to do that,
Right.
so that it would be a concentration of effort as such, an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, the students had a lot to say. That was wonderful. And Shauna, you did a nice job of drawing out their ideas, and so
Yeah.
it was lovely.
Left Marshalltown and then came back. That was really interesting to hear why the student came back and the differences between our district. Just incredible to hear from them.
Okay, and then Equity Committee met last week. Is that Karina and Bonnie?
I was on vacation.
Yes, we had a guest speaker and a PowerPoint, and we talked a little bit about critical race theory. And also, I needed to leave to go run a Rotary meeting that started at 5:30. Did subgroups have the opportunity to report what they were doing? So I can report a little bit about what our subgroup did. Definitely looking at data with regard to attendance data and equity, and looking at how to meet needs of specific students and to make a difference in getting them to school, as well as looking at what might be keeping them from coming to school. And we also looked then at the demographics of how that impacted folks. And I think I shared at the last meeting that the elementary schools are really rocking it with regard to contacting parents and figuring out what's going on, why kids aren't at school, and getting them back to school. So, you know, we all know that at the elementary, it's really the parent who's in control of a lot of that. And as you get up to the middle school and high school, there's more of a opportunity for our students themselves to find challenges for not coming to school. And so, but I am enjoying that committee, and it's nice to have opportunities to have those conversations in subcommittees as well as coming together and moving the whole effort forward.
Thanks. Okay, what have we done this evening to improve the education for students in Marshalltown?
I want again to say I really appreciate the work that Matt's doing with dyslexia. It is possible to teach dyslexic students to read, but as a school system and as a nation, we've not been doing a good job with it. So we are making progress, and that's good.
Our youngsters from Lenahan having those extended learning opportunities to dive deeper into specific areas to learn more and really to branch out and think about what they might want to do in the future. They're learning a lot of things outside of the regular classroom and really lifelong learning kinds of things.
So mine tonight was that we approved that contract with Iowa Valley Community College for summer college credit. I thought that was, that's a great thing for kids.
I think the CAPS presentation just illustrating how, you know, they're one of many partners we have in the community that are working hard to try to address the needs of the whole child.
Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Faltus Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, we're adjourned, but that doesn't mean you get to leave.
Thank you.
You guys do though.
Are you bringing the spaghetti to us, or?
So what are we talking about? This little snack out here.
It's
Yeah, we don't need to beep it.
a session, no.
Sirens going on. No beeping.
It's down there. I couldn't have gotten out.
No spaghetti for you.
What,
We still got time.
What's down there? Let me.
Be a quick dash.